All right, I'm Fast Eddie coming to you live from Fast Eddie Records. Today we're going to talk about the late, the great Coleman Hawkins. We got a great haul today from Reckless Records. Let's talk about first about what we picked up. We got the great Johnny Hodges, amazing Brazilian mix. We got the great Eddie Haywood. Unbelievable. Can't wait to go over this. But the coup de grace, the luckiest, one of my favorite finds yet. And this is why I'm going over this one guys first, is because Coleman Hawkins means a lot to me, and what he did for music and the mark he left and the way he plays is something that I'll never forget, even the first time I ever heard it. So that's the thing with some of these artists. The first time you hear it, you never forget what that sound is. And then I had to research back and find out a lot more about this great man. So the record I found it's a live version of On the Sunny Side of the Street. Here it is right here. It's called Great Big Bands and Friends. It was recorded in Sweden in 1960, and they brought over all these big bands to play. They had a big band, and they brought all these American soloists over to play with this big band, and they did great jazz classics. And you had amazing artists on this record featured. You have Nat Adderley, you have Coleman Hawkins, you have Lucky Thompson. You also have a guy named Toots Thielmans. Toots Thielmans. Wow, we're gonna find out more about this guy. He's a harmonica player. His solo for that Old Black Magic and Pennies from Heaven, they touched my heart. They were unbelievable. So this record is a great find. Like I said, I think I found this in the compilation section at Reckless Records over on Milwaukee. And when I pulled it, at first, again, I know which kind of records I'm looking for, and when I pulled it, I turned it over on the other side. As soon as I saw T for Two, I knew it was a standards record, and here we go. I move it down On the Sunny Side of the Street, Coleman Hawkins himself. And so I posted a video of an interview with Coleman Hawkins, and it's an amazing video, and it's done around the same time this record is made, which is really cool. And he has a lot of perspective on his career at this point. He's still an amazing player. And he gives some great insight into what it was like coming up in jazz. And it reminds me of a modern day podcast, really. So you should definitely take a look at it. I posted it in one of my playlists, and I'll share it with anyone that asks me about it. I'll actually put it in the comments of this video, so people can track it down even easier. But it's an amazing talk, and he talks about how competitive he was. He talks about the great bands he played. So he played with the greats of the time. He played with Fletcher Henderson. He played with Duke Ellington. He was a soloist for many years. He lived in France for a long time, lived in Europe for 6 or 7 years, then came back. He talks about how competitive New York was. New York was a place to not to be messed with. If you were going there to play in the 30s, 40s, and 50s jazz scene, you were going there, you better be at the top of your game. And he talks about even the greats, every great that showed up there struggled mightily, and before they got to the level. So one of the great stories he tells in that video, in that interview, is about two guys that I remember is Cannonball Adderley. He's talking about him in real time, about how the first time he shows up, he had a real rough time in New York, and just a few months later he shows up and he's more ready to play, and he's got his own sound back. And then Count Basie, how Basie was just killing it some other place, and in Kansas City, how he comes to New York, and within a few weeks the whole band, he had to fire him, he had to get rid of him and displace him for the guys that were in the scene. Because what would happen was they call it cutting heads. Like you'd go to a jazz spot, they'd all be playing, and the top players would show up. If you were a new tenor player on the scene, here comes Lester Young, here comes Coleman Hawkins, here comes all the greats from the time, and they're coming to cut you.
New York, a finishing school. You don't come to New York to learn to play jazz. Learn the beginner stuff. No. You come to New York prepared to go to finishing school. This is like where you get your master's degree. Coleman Hawkins and Prez would say, "Oh, a new tenor player in town. Let's go get him." And they go get him, and they tear him up. Little cat like Frank Foster, they tear him up. You know, they got Billy Mitchell. All these cats come to New York. They find out quick who the best.
And that's how he says it. And I was like, wow, how competitive. And it's an amazing testament to how that competitiveness like really spawned some amazing art and work during that time, and how rich the work is during that time. So Coleman Hawkins, amazing competitor. And again, in that interview, he talks about how much practice, how much time. He would play oftentimes. He like a lot of the other greats. He also could play piano. He could play drums, and so he would spend a lot of his time hanging out with his friends, drinking, hanging out, commiserating into the not just into the morning, into the afternoon of the next day, playing, constantly playing, keeping his chops at the highest level. And like I said, he was a great soloist for all those big bands. He played on so many of the amazing, records. All the records that we have out here, he's on some of the other recordings, but not playing on the Sunny Side. So the fact that I found this record, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable to me. That's why I'm starting with it. I have some other great, like I said, I already talked about Lester Young and some other great tenor players that have played the song, Don Bias, other great players that have played this song. But I wanted to start with the great Coleman Hawkins, because what he did, the indelible mark he left on music, is unbelievable. And so that's what I'm saying about this song is, On the Sunny Side of the Street, what is it about it that all of these greats they've laid it down on wax? I just researched yesterday, there's a version, Charlie Parker's got a version, Miles Davis has a version, recorded live. So no one forced these guys to play this song. There's a reason why this song has been repeated over time. And there's something so deep about how the melody was written, and you got to give it to a guy like Fats Waller. Oh, that's another thing. He talks about Fats Waller like he's a genius, like he's some sort of savant who could just write a song walking down the street. How he was he was the walking show. Fats Waller could sit down at a piano in minutes, write a jazz classic. He talks about how a lot of the songs that we know, Fletcher Henderson, about with this song, On the Sunny Side of the Street, that are credited to other people, Fats would sell those for almost no money because of the state he was in financially, and because he could just write songs. He didn't know which ones were going to be hits or which ones were going to go on to be just massive hits and standards. Of course, if he did, he wouldn't have given them away, but he was so prolific that he just, and that's how Coleman's talking about him. So the Hawk, the Bean, the way he talked about Fats Waller is in such high regard. So I highly recommend finding other recordings from Coleman Hawkins, looking him up, of course, and again looking into the interview that I posted on my page, Fast Eddie's Records. So please remember to subscribe to the page. We only have a few subscribers. It's a passion project, but it's going to be really fun. I promise you, this is going to be a great journey. So for the vinyl lover, for the record collector, for the music lover, for the jazz head, for anyone that's in the music, this is going to be a cool channel to check out. Again, it's just to even hear about people like Coleman Hawkins. So let's play the record. Let's listen to his version. It's unbelievable. Coleman Hawkins. There's nothing that needs to be said. He said it all. And that last solo. I mean, it's just, you can totally see the arc of where jazz was going on that one solo. He takes that simple last stanza and just, wow, blows my mind. Unbelievable masters, and I feel so lucky to be finding some of this stuff and to be, I can't wait to listen to more Coleman Hawkins and learn more about him. So like I said, that interview is critical. Listen to that interview. You'll learn so much about the man.
Coleman Hawkins was beautiful, man.